There are basically five cornerstones I always talk about, when I say how you can be successful. And first one, you got to relate to your players. You got to have a total commitment back and forth between the two of you, and permeate through the team. And they've got to trust each other and trust the coaching. Two, you got to be passionate about what you're doing and be innovative. And then you had to be able to work ethic had to be there, being a light for other people. We went to schools throughout the community every year for the Lansing Promise, which is a reading program, and then you had that was number four, and then you had to win, and you got to win,
Got to win.
you got to win championships.
Hey, it's LaVar Arrington here, and I got a dandy for you today. I got Coach Mark Dantonio. You probably know him from a couple different places, but the most notable obviously would be him as a Michigan State Spartan head coach. Had an illustrious career, an amazing career, a 24 NFF Football Foundation Hall of Fame inductee, now one of my brethren. And I get an opportunity to talk to him about Michigan State, about what football has represented to him in his life, and, some lighter things like doing charity with your wife. That's all coming at you right now. Here we go. And 3, and 2, and 1. Here we go. National Football Foundation. What's good in the game? Well, you're about to find out. We got Coach Mark Dantonio with us. I'm familiar with this man. Obviously, a Big Ten legend, and was a DB's coach when I was back in school, and had the
Absolutely.
likes of Amp Campbell and Sorry Canoe, and those who are Michigan State Spartan fans. I'm a fan first, Coach, and I remember
Yeah.
those teams, Robert Smith and Julian Peterson and all those guys up front. But you had the defensive backfield. We had Coach Mark Dantonio. It's great to see you. How are you feeling? How's everything going for you?
Good. Everything's going good. Woke up the other day and I told my wife I'm 5 years retired. So it's gone pretty quick and missed a lot of it, but some things you don't miss. But it's not like a job you say, "Hey, I'm gonna work 2 days a week on."
I hear
You're
you.
or not. But yeah, you bring up some names. I still stay in touch with those guys. Eric
Do you
Moore,
really? I
Joe
saw
Hill.
that story. He's like a nurse now or something like that.
Sorry is a nurse practitioner for heart patients, I think, in chronic condition, and Amp's coaching and down in Sarasota. I think he's might be the AD
Okay.
and head coach. And Naldo Hill just took a job at Carolina
Ronaldo
Panthers.
Hill. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I see
Some
Eric
great
every now and then.
memories. Great memories. And well, not a
Great
great
game.
memory. Not a great memory when we came to East Lansing. It was never fun coming to East Lansing, but definitely enjoyed the time we had with you guys in State College. But talk to me a little bit about the impact football. I mean, just even listening to what you had to say about some of your former guys during my time. What has the game of football meant to you, Coach?
Yeah, it's really been everything. I started playing, I think, in the second grade, probably like you, and then I ended up coaching 41 years. So you do the math on that. I was in an August camp for you know 50 years plus,
Right.
and you had a chance to be around football, which you love, but you also had a chance to develop young people
Hmm.
and see them grow from an 18-year-old to 22 and then beyond. And a lot of my players now have children grown up, and I was at Michigan State as a head coach for 13 years, and so when you do the math on that one, that's a guy who's in first grade, is going to connect with a
Yeah.
guy who's a freshman in college. That's a long time
It's a
span,
long
and
time.
we had some good success, but more importantly, hopefully, we're defined by who we were as people and relationship piece with the players.
Coach, this is a show called Good in the Game. It's National Football Foundation podcast. It's been an honor for me to be able to do this show because I get to learn, listen, and hear what you guys, the knowledge of those who have been a part of our game and have been good for our game. Just what does the National Football Foundation represent to you? Because you just mentioned the idea of one of your former players being a nurse to heart patients and head coaches. I'm sure you run the entire, gambit of spectrum of what guys are doing and how they're doing it. One
Right.
thing's for certain, you had a lot of academic All-Americans that were, I believe, 219, if my memory is serves me and my research serves me correctly. That's a lot of education and a lot of value. I played for a coach named Joe Paterno. He
Yeah.
valued education very much, and you are in that elite class of those coaches that not only did it on the football field, but wanted guys to be exceptional in the classroom. Can you talk to me about the National Football Foundation and that educational component?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, about Joe Paterno, I got to know him a little bit tail end of his career, but Nike would bring us on these trips. The first trip I was on, they were playing this bingo game, this high stakes bingo game at the end of the deal, and Coach Paterno said, "Hey, come on," because my last name's Italian, I think.
Yes, sir.
Come over and sit with me and Sue, and end up playing bingo with them, and I'm just sitting there bumping my wife, saying, "Can you believe this?"
I played bingo
He
with
was
Joe
quite a
Paterno.
guy. He was quite a guy, but
That's a beautiful thing.
NFF. First of all, you know, I was just inducted in the Hall of Fame, and the first class job they did with all of that, and
It's
when
very
you
nice.
say National Football Foundation, my mind goes to that, but it also goes to when I was a coach at Cincinnati and first becoming a head coach, all the different things that they would do to promote football at the high school level and really in the communities across the nation. And they've got quite a few things set up for those individuals. And Marvin Lewis spoke at one of them, was the lead guy, and so they got high integrity guys sort of that they bring in and talk to the coaches. And but it speaks to the game of football. Archie Manning, I had a chance to meet him out there, senior, and the things that he does, and so involved with Steve Hatchell and so many of the other people. They're committed to what they do, and that is the game of football. And I still think of football as being the number one team sport in America because it involves so many different people, and it is difficult to play. Because you gotta bear down a little bit and grind just to stay in it.
That's right. That's right. Coach, you started off as a DC for Butler County.
Yeah, you're
Now,
going way back now.
I because I'm a historian now. Like, I love these are the stories that I really, really, truly get into. A matter of years later, you brought up Youngstown. You did start off as the head coach. You started off as a DC at Youngstown State. Now, me being from Pittsburgh, I know all about the Penguins. I know how they
Yeah,
played. They played some hard-nosed football, and knowing that at some point in time you were a part of that culture that was being built in Youngstown. They play ball there. What lessons did you learn at Butler, small time, right? You're at a small time school. I
yeah.
believe Kansas. Is it Kansas?
Kansas, El Dorado, Kansas.
Kansas. Then you end up at Youngstown. But then after a couple years, you move around DB coach, you hit DC at The Ohio State University. What lessons did you learn at both those stops as a D coordinator that led to what your success ultimately was in your tenure with Coach Tressel at Ohio State?
Yeah, first of all, my dad's from Clareton, so I got people in Pittsburgh as well. So
Tough.
been there a
Tooth,
lot,
we
but
call it tooth chippers, coach.
yeah, yeah.
Lunch
But
pail hard hats.
just like everybody, you start at the bottom and you sort of work your way up. And I played at South Carolina and then coached 1 year in high school and then off to Ohio U and then Purdue University as GAs and then Butler County has this defensive coordinator job open, and my secondary coach at South Carolina is connected. So anyway, long story short, I get the job there, and I think 5 of the players we had on that team ended up playing in the NFL. So
Wow.
they
Wow.
were the defending national junior college champions, and it's only there for 1 year, but because they made a change, we went 4-4-1. That wasn't good enough, but uh, found out that I had to do things a little bit what you knew, but you also had to do things differently to incorporate the different things that were already being done there.
Mm-hmm.
And on to actually being a GA at Ohio State for Earl Bruce. And Dom Capers and Gary Blackney were my guys in
Great
the
names.
secondary, and
I
Jim
love Don
Tressel,
Capers.
and so then bounced to Youngstown State, or actually Akron for a year, and Jim Dennison, and they let him go, even though we were 8-3. Just made a change. Um, Youngstown State for 5 years, ended up being the defensive coordinator there, and I had I was blessed to play for coach for two great Hall of Fame coaches. Really four: Jim Young at Purdue and Earl Bruce, and then Nick Saban and Jim Tressel. So I spent the time with Jim Tressel and um, just learned about how to handle people, really management skills and communicating with individuals and having a shared commitment and learning they need to trust you and all the different things you went through. And went to Kansas for 4, up to Michigan State for 6, 5 with Nick, and then back down to Ohio State where we won a national championship, and a lot of the things that really were brought with me from Michigan State defensively were Nick Saban's things. So incorporated a lot of those things and dumbed it down a little bit the second year, and let our guys play and play fast. Went 14-0, and then on to Cincinnati as a head coach, and did my own thing for 3 years, and took our staff, went to Michigan State for 13.
That is amazing. Building it, and it traveling. Coach, you mentioned Coach Saban, and he was the head coach. That was the head guy when we were going head to head with Michigan State. Being around a coach like Coach Saban, who built what he built at Alabama once he left, and then you going to Ohio State, being with Coach Tressel, what was that? Was it learning? Now I'm back to the original part. Was it executing? What was that experience like for you as the coach?
Well, initially at Michigan State, there was a lot of learning. He was coming from the Cleveland Browns. He was a guy that worked for Bill Belichick, and guy that Bum Phillips at the Oilers. So he was a defensive back guy. So there was a lot of learning. And Dean Pease was our coordinator. For those out there, Dean Pease is a Hall of Fame coach himself. Super Bowl guy, defensive coordinator for I think maybe 3 or 4 Super Bowls. But so I had some learning to do there, and but the fundamental things were, Jim Tressel more of an offensive guy, Nick Saban more of a defensive guy, but fundamentally everything was very detail oriented, very technique oriented, process driven, and like I've always said, people don't understand the process; they understand the product, but they don't understand how you get there sometimes, and so both coaches were big on relationships and spending time with their players on things other than just football, and investing in them as people. And I learned a lot, and so I learned a lot from Nick defensively. Went down and learned from Tress a little bit more as a defensive coordinator, big picture. And one of the biggest advantages I think I had as a head coach going to Michigan State was that was the 5th time that I was involved in a new staff, coming in with a new staff, completely new. So, I saw how people worked it on the first 4 and how I worked it by myself on number 4. And then I had the 5th opportunity going to Michigan State. So there was a plan in place when we went up there to be successful, and this is what you had to do. And this was the blueprint. And then we, we're innovative a little bit on our end, and, work towards being successful.
Coach, I like to believe somewhere up in football heaven, Coach Joe Paterno is telling somebody LaVar was one of my favorite players. Now, I doubt that that's the truth, because I gave Coach a hard time when I was there. We kind of, I didn't mean it that way. I just, I was the child that loved them the most, but gave them the most problems. That was.
I had a couple of those.
I accept that role, Coach. I do, and you know what? I am so much the man that I need to be, and have needed to be, because of the lessons I learned from my coach. Who's one of your favorite? Give me a favorite player. Give me a story. You said you had one of them. Who was one of the players that jumps out in your memory just right off the top of your mind? And just give me a reason why, because to me, this is what's part of what's good in the game as well. That relationship that a coach has with that few that just like they had a crazy bond. It was pretty different from what the other guys were. This one was something different, something special.
Yeah, first of all my secondary guys, Coach Kwame Lassiter at Kansas.
Yeah,
He
rest
was
his
special.
soul. Good dude.
He was special.
Good
Very
dude.
special guy. We were very close. And then when I was at Michigan State, Julian Peterson, I recruited Julian,
JP.
JP, and even though I had my secondary guys, and they were like family, the guys we'd already talked about, Am Campbell and such. But Julian was a little bit special because I knew his mom so well, his mom and dad.
Yeah.
And along the way, there were challenges, just getting in the door to
Yeah.
recruit them.
Yeah.
But
That's
once I got in
beautiful.
the door, I was family. So every time I'd come to DC, I'd stop by and see his mom. Even this is later on when I'm, have an apple martini with her or two, and
She's something else, wasn't she?
he was something else.
Yes, she was. Yes, she
Yeah.
was. Special woman. Special family, man. Shouts out to the Peterson family.
But I see
Absolutely.
Julian. I sat and watched the game with Julian this past season up in Michigan State when he came
Nice.
back. He and I,
Okay.
and it was good. But there's just so many guys. It's hard to point out one guy. I could just throw names like Kirk Cousins out or
Mm-hmm.
Keith Nickel or guys on defense. Jack Allen was a center, All-American center that was very always jacking around with me. Basically, no pun intended. But and
Right.
then guys that would test you. They would test you. But
Sure they would.
we're all special.
I love that. I love that. Coach, you won a lot of Big Ten titles. You were Coach of the Year a couple times. Um, you've had so many. You've amassed so many different awards through the years. What do you attribute that work ethic to? What like was it your upbringing? Was it something you developed as you went along? Was it something you learned from those coaches you were with? During your times in between becoming the head coach for as long as you did at Michigan State, what played a part in how you developed your approach and your work ethic to be the type of impactful coach that you ultimately became?
I think it started at home with my mom and dad. Initially, and they were. He was a teacher, coach, educator, but then I was just blessed to have good coaches along the way in high school, even in little league, and people that just sort of cared about you. And then in college, like I said, my secondary coach, and I started saying, hey, I'd like to be like that guy. I'd like to be like Coach Evans. Got a good job. Be around football, be around young people, and then along the way, the people we've already touched on really are all the coaches that have been around me and on my staff included, and then my players. And I was, like you said, have gotten a lot of awards, especially this last year. And um, at every opportunity I've gotten, I've tried to talk about the people that are surrounded me, because those awards have their initial scratched in there. Because you don't get there without great people, and you don't
That's
get
right.
there without one person doesn't get there. You have to have a total group of people going in the same direction, and staying committed and persevering through adversity and things of that nature. So I think along the way you sort of build up to it, try and dream big. And I never thought that I'd be sitting there talking to LaVar Arrington about my
Oh,
career
yeah.
uh,
Flattered.
30 years ago. But it just sort of happens. Like I said, I'm blessed to be a part of it. I had a good family here. My wife is a wonderful, beautiful woman, and um, faith related, and all that type of thing. So, I've been blessed along the way, but you don't get there by yourself.
Indeed. And you mentioned your beautiful wife. You both have done so much in the community. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the idea of what's good in the game is also ultimately our way of giving back to our communities. You have serviced and served in the communities that you have coached in, and you've done so much. I just wanted to give you a little bit of time. I know your wife ran clinics at one point in time every year for the moms and different things like that. So she was a team player and was active with things that were going on as well. So that mentioning of not doing it by yourself is something that you guys truly lived. It's not just, tongue in cheek. It's not lip service. She was active as well, and she was coaching them up as well. Just talk a little bit about that, how important community is to you and what you're serving now, and if there's anything that you'd love to plug in terms of making sure somebody needs to visit and get involved. You have the floor.
Yeah, she got the thing started, a women's clinic, and we'd have 250 to 300 women, and players would do the little workouts with them and everything. And then we'd take that every year and donate it to some area in the community. And then we did other things in the community as well. Children's Miracle Network I was involved in for a long time with other things in the community as well. But there are basically five cornerstones I always talk about, when I say how you can be successful. And first one, you got to relate to your players. You got to have a total commitment back and forth between the two of you, and permeate through the team. And they've got to trust each other and trust the coaching. You can't do that without great communication. So that's number one. Number two, you got to be passionate about what you're doing and be innovative and, get your degree, or in the case of a coach, you got to continue to try and learn more, do better, things of that nation area. And then you had to be able to work ethic had to be there, being a light for other people. We went to schools throughout the community every year for the Lansing Promise, which is a reading program and educational, going through getting out of high school and going to college someplace. Lansing Promise was a big part of that, and then they would read throughout the community. And then you had that was number four, and then you had to win. And you got to win. You got to win. You got to win championships, because when you get to be 7-5, that's not good enough anymore. You get to be 9-3, that's not good enough anymore. So, we won big, especially in those years, 13, 14, and 15. But, I guess if the playoffs were around right now, we'd have been in 5 of them. And
how you think you would have did?
I think we would have won them all.
I know that's right, Coach. And hey, we ain't going to say nothing different.
Of course, we wouldn't have played Alabama. You check their scores out.
Alabama was pretty good during them years.
Yeah, they were good. But,
Coach, it's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. This is all I got. It's all I had, because you know what? Yeah. You have truly represented what is good in the game. I have truly enjoyed getting an opportunity to speak with you and hear your voice. And I tell you what, it is so humbling to have the opportunities just to talk to you guys and know the accomplishments and the things that you guys have represented within the football community. And it just, man, it's really cool to talk to you, Coach. Like, I wish you all the best.
I always remember coming over there to play, and you guys coming to our place.
Oh, yeah.
There were some great games.
There were some good ones. I tell you,
you guys – special time, special
plays. Beautiful. We had a great game against you guys in 98, but 97, my freshman year, we came to East Lansing, and the two running backs put 200 yards. I wasn't on the field, Coach.
I remember 200 each.
200 each. 200 each. Yeah. I was on the bench watching, and I was stewing, and I was a true freshman. And I said to myself, no one would ever go over 100 yards if I was on the field. I made that promise that day. And the only other running back to break 100 yards on us was
TJ Duckett.
And I was on the sideline once again because everybody thought I was in trouble. I was not in trouble. I basically dislocated my shoulder hitting Anthony Thomas a week or so before in the Michigan game. So I'm certain if he knocked my shoulder loose, that going out there against TJ Duckett, I probably would have left my shoulder in East Lansing. So they held me on to the sideline, and TJ I think he ran for over 200 yards that day too.
Yeah, we had some good players.
You did. I think it was Cedric Urban and
Urban.
Yeah, I want to say like Ronaldo. Was it Ronaldo Hill? Was that the
He
back?
was a corner.
That was the corner. What was the other man?
Yeah, I'm blanking
I'm
too.
blanking on the other back, but I know Cedric Irving was the other back, and I don't
Yeah.
think he was even starting. It was the other one that was the starter that was really doing the damage, and
Yeah.
Cedric was doing what he was doing. But hey,
Lozelle Adams up there blocking.
big flows in. I had to deal with him in the league, man. One of the most athletic, probably underrated, undervalued offensive lineman to ever play the game was Flozell. I'll be the first one to admit that. Whew, he was a man. That was a grown man, coach.
Big dude. There's some good players on that field. So
It's so good talking to you. I
thanks so
appreciate
much.
you. And yeah, and just keep enjoying the good life with the misses, and maybe I'll see you at one of these Michigan State games, and we'll catch up a little bit, or
Definitely.
in fact we'll catch up at a football foundation induction, and
Yeah, I'll be at the next one.
yes, that'd be
I'll be
good.
watching.
That'd be good. All right,
Yeah.
good coach. Good to
Yeah.
talk to you. All righty, you take care.
Thank you.
That's Coach Mark Dantonio. I tell you what, that was a great conversation, and I enjoyed that conversation. Obviously there's a personal connection there to it, so yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Good in the Game, and continue to pay attention to what the National Football Foundation is doing within the football community to build and to grow these strong messages and strong bonds of what Good in the Game represents. I'm LaVar Arrington. This is Good in the Game. Until next time, guys.